Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and today in this lecture we are going to talk about the workers and the peasant movement of the 1930s and the 1940s. Now, like always, in this lecture too, I would first give you the background of these movements and then why I'm talking about this and how they're important for our exam. So, you already know the things very well, all those things that happened during the 1930s. Uh, for example, you already know about the salt satyagraha, you already know about the communal accord, right? And then 1935 Government of India Act, you know that, right? And then in the last lecture that we did, you're quite well aware about that, about the Congress rule, that how Congress rule also gave impetus, how it gave a push to the workers and the peasant movements. This over here, the workers and the peasant movement. Now, first, I will just give you a brief overview, and then we will go into the details of what all was happening. Okay. Now, the pattern that I will be following in this particular lecture would be like, let me just quickly tell you before I give you the background. Number one, first I'll give you a short summary of all the things that we are going to study, and then the topics would be like, first of all, there's this background that I'm building up, and then after that we'll be covering this all India Kisan movement, and then I'll be talking a little detail about the Congress. Actually, the when the in last two lectures what we covered, the council entry of Congress, lecture number 63 and 64, 63, 64, right? And then after that, their role, I mean, how it helped in workers and peasant movement. And then after this, I will talk about how the peasants were mobilized, and then we'll talk about the decline of the peasant movement. And then one very important topic over here, which is the Bhaga struggle, I'll be talking about this. And then lastly, the impact of the workers and the peasant movement of the 1930s and 40s. That is how our lecture will end. And after this, after this lecture, we'll begin our story of what do you call this? The freedom struggle in the princely India. So when this story ends, then that story will start. The princely states, the freedom struggle there, right? So this will be about it. Now let's start the lecture. Yeah, actually, this short summary over here, this will actually be the reasons, the first thing that we are going to discuss. So let's start discussing those. So the reasons for which all these workers and peasant movement could grow at that time. Now, I want you to do something, right? I want you to think that what can be the reasons, because if you have been listening to my lectures very seriously, and if you want to really show your intellectual thing, then, and this is what UPSC is also doing, right? Now I want you to just sit down and pause this video here, just pause it, take a pen and paper and write down the points and think over what are the reasons for which peasant and movement could rise in 1930s and 1940s, right? You have to think of the background. Okay, so do this exercise. This will really help you in writing better answers in exam. That's number one, right? Number one. Number two is that I will also give you reasons. Now this list can never be exhaustive. Okay, I mean, this list can never be complete. I'll give you a lot of reasons, but this can never be exhaustive. Now, what I will be doing, I'll be giving you the most important reasons of this growth of peasant movement and the workers movement at this time. Number one. Number two, now what you can do, you can do an exercise over here. Okay, what is the exercise? Like, you have to put down this in the comment section. Just put a comment below that I could guess, I could think of these many reasons, 1, 2, 3, how many reasons you can think of. Just put it in the comment section down below, right? And then second thing is, like, if you can come up with some different reason from all what I am stating, please do add to it. That will help all of us. Okay, so that's how we will be pursuing this particular lecture. To trace the reasons for this, I would start from the 1920 to 22 movement. Now, what is this movement? We have already done this. If you can always click here, this will take you to the lecture where I have discussed this movement. The second would be the 1930 to 1934 movement, right? I hope you remember this NCM, CDM movements, right? If you don't, I've just hyperlinked this. You just have to click over here. This will take you to that lecture. It will open in a new window. That's how it will work. Now, these movements, what these movements did, these movements politicized the people, and people included peasants also. And once you are politicized, then what happens? You become aware, and then you fight. And how do you fight? You fight. And how do you fight? You fight through a movement. That is how it worked. Those are two reasons. Number three, there was economic depression going on in the world. 1929 economic crisis. You all know this. Okay. Now this crisis, when crisis happens anywhere, what happens? That, like, who is impacted? The poor are impacted. And who are the most poor people? Is the peasants and the workers. So the poor are affected, and the worst affected are the peasants. And when the peasants are affected, what do? They bring a movement for their welfare, because nobody is taking their care. Not just this, like, I have more reasons for the growth of this peasant movements at that time. And number four reason is that what are the peasants doing? Oh, now tell me, what is the job of peasant? They are into a field of agriculture. Now what happened, that the prices of agricultural products, for example wheat, for example rice, right? And just give you an example. Now all these the prices of products dropped by over 50%. For example, today, let's suppose a farmer gets 1100 rupees as MSP, minimum support price. I hope you have read that in economy. If you have not, I can cover it, right, sometime somewhere. So 1100 rupees suppose is getting MSP. Now if this price, now you know that so many farmers commit suicide in India. Now suppose this price, this over here, this has come down to 550 rupees. What will happen? Can you imagine the plight of farmers or the peasants, to put it more aptly? Now this had happened by the end of 1932. So that's reason number four. And what happened? They turned more poor. And when you are poor, what do? You do a movement. And what kind of movement? Because you are a peasant, so you will do a peasant movement. That is how it went on. Number five reason is that whenever economy falls, you know that employers, what would they do? They would there would be retrenchment, or they would reduce the wages. And this is what happened. The wages were reduced. And when wages are reduced, what happens? People are angry. The labor class, the workers in the factories, they would be angry about it. And what would they do then? They will protest against the employers. And what will happen then? That will again same thing happen. They will have the movement. And that is how the workers movement became quite strong at this time. Number six reason is the influence of the left parties. You know this thing, that these leftist parties, all these have huge support of the workers and the peasants. So these were primarily the demands of the reasons because of which the worker and the peasant movement could grow at that time. Now let's move to the other second part. Okay, so we are done with this. So I'll just delete this page over here. Now, so this is the first page we were studying about. So first thing is the reasons that we have done. Okay, and along with reasons, actually I would also like to talk about the demands. So we can actually include demands also over here. So this will include demands also, and also a few names over here of the organizations that came because of the rise in the workers and the peasants movement. Okay, it should be a workers and peasants movement. Anyway, so moving ahead. Now, before I discuss the demands with you, I would like you to do this. Just stop this video, pause this video for a while, and think over that what can be the demands of these workers and the peasants. See, I've already shared the reasons that why this movement became so popular at this time. So I want you now to think that what can be the demands when they protest, because all of them are protesting only. And once you're done writing, thinking the kind of demands, then compare it to what I have to say here. So they started, the first thing, always what the workers will always do, they will always look for land reforms. Why? That will mean more profitability, ensured agriculture. You can always think of why would there be land reform needed. Then, as I told you, that there was a demand for increasing the land revenue and also increasing the rent. So, and of course they will say that give us relief from what? Indebtedness. Okay, so these were the kinds of demands. And so these are the agricultural farmers, the peasants asking, and the workers, they were asking for better conditions of work. Now I hope you remember the Factories Act that we discussed, 1891 and 1881, like we done it in earlier lectures. I hope you remember them. So this is the way. Actually, now imagine, in UPSC can always ask you a question, discuss the condition of the workers during the British rule. This can be question. What you can do, you can just write down the answer on this and send it to me. You already have my email address. This is there down there in the description below. Okay, so you can always do that. During British rule, discuss the condition of workers, the position or the condition of workers, and the steps taken, condition of workers. You can just write down this answer and send it to me. I'll check it to you at the earliest. So condition of workers and steps taken to improve them. Okay, that's what you have to do. So, whenever you're writing this, you can talk about the better condition of workers' work. Here, there was the demand. But, of course, you can always discuss the old Factories Act. Okay, I'll just mention it here, and I would soon hyperlink this. You see, there's one important thing that I'll make a separate video on that also, that you always must listen to my videos at least with annotations on. That's very important, because if I have to add something later on, I do that through annotations. And you do not get these annotations in downloaded videos. Please remember that. For that, you have to see it on YouTube only. Anyway, right, so that's like number 3 thing. And then number 4, the workers over here, they were looking for what is called as trade union rights. Okay, so that's like, these are the 4 basic demands that were being demanded at that time. Now let's see that what were the other demands which were being made. So not the demand, the areas where this movement was spread, and the few names of which were quite popular regarding workers and the peasant movement. And then we will work on to the All India Kisan movement from there on, because that's another name over there. So when I talk to you about the areas where this workers and peasant movement was spread, please remember that it was happening all over India. But what we can do is we can have this is just a rough map of India. Okay, I'm not so good at it. Geography people are actually very good at it. So you can just draw this map in your exam also the way I am drawing. Okay, this will just help you get few extra marks. So anyway, so what happens that, but this movement was particularly more prominent in few areas, and few of these areas included, one was this area of this UP, and then Bihar over here. Okay, this is just an approximate location, not the exact location. But this is how you can actually do it in the exam also. And this Tamil Nadu over here. Okay. Here it was quite popular, and then apart from Tamil Nadu, it was very popular in Andhra Pradesh also. Okay, and somewhere over here only, right? Andhra, and then it was popular in Kerala, and Kerala over here, it's quite popular over here in Punjab also. Okay, so you have 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. Basically 6 areas where this movement was quite popular. And if I have to tell you about few names, prominent names of this time, so what those names would be, I'll just tell you those. Actually, I'm more keen on one name only, and that is the main detail about which we'll be talking. And this is, please remember this name. See, I do not ask you to remember all the names, but this name in particular is more important, and this is known as All India Kisan Sabha. All India Kisan Sabha. Okay, and it was formed in 1936, and this was formed under. Please do remember the year also, if possible, of this. At least do remember that it was in the 1930s, and it was after Government of India Act came, and but this was before the elections were held. At least remember this much, if not the exact year. Swami Shahjanand Saraswati. Swami Shahjanand Saraswati. Okay, let me just write this name properly. Please do remember this. Like, if you think your time is getting wasted in me writing this, so what you can do is just start remembering this meanwhile. Okay, so All India Kisan Sabha 1936, Swami Shahjanand Saraswati. This is the most important name, right? Please do not confuse Swami Shahjanand with Swami Shraddhanand. Okay, Swami Shraddhanand. These days a lot of people they do not understand the meaning of Swami, the word Swami. Anyway, let's not get into that. So Swami Shraddhanand was a different person, and if you want to read about Swami Shraddhanand, you have to refer to the earlier lectures. You know that he was a Arya Samaji leader. Okay, Arya Samaj leader, and he was asked by the Muslims to preach from the pulpit of the Jama Masjid at Delhi. Okay, it was at that time, and while Dr. Saifuddin Kichlu, he was asked to preach. He was given the keys of the Golden Temple, which is very important to all religions, especially Sikhism. So Swami Shraddhanand is different from Swami Shahjanand, and here we are talking about Swami Shahjanand Saraswati, who is dealing with All India Kisan Sabha 1936. Actually, he was the president of this thing. Okay, and Swami Shraddhanand Arya Samaj, right? In fact, in the 1919 session, he was the head of the Congress. 19 Amritsar session was there. He was the head at that time. Okay, so now we are going to talk about All India Kisan Movement. All India Kisan Movement. You can take a new page of your copy, because we'll be going in a little more detail about this. We already know in the background in which it was formed, and the reasons for the rise of the peasant and the workers movement in 30s 40s is same as this All India Kisan. The same reasons are same for All India Kisan movement as well. Now, you know this, that there was a lot of leftist trend also, and in leftist trend, one of the most important thing was the formation of CSP, Congress Socialist Party. Now, you all know that who were the main people associated with the CSP. I remember, right? I making a formula for this jam trinity, right? There was Jayaprakash Narayan, Acharya Narendra Dev, and Minnu Masani. Those were the three important leaders of CSP. Anyway, so with the formation of CSP, what had happened, that the left was consolidated. Left got together, all the left, okay? And when left got consolidated, the Kisan movement, it got impetus, and along with the special, now this Kisan, and when it got impetus, all this culminated into formation of what is known as the All India Kisan Sabha, in this All India Kisan movement. Okay, so All India Kisan Sabha was formed, AIKS. Okay, this is very important thing. Now, in the formation of this, see, I'll always tell you the story. I'll not much focus on facts, though I'll tell you all the important facts. I never miss on those. And the important fact here is the main important leader, who is N.G. Ranga. Okay, and for those people who are unable to remember this, you can just think of because CSP, and CSP is jam, and jam is what we eat. And jam is red color, rang is Hindi word for color, so you can red color, so that's how you can remember. Okay, rang, so that is what you can how you can remember it. For other languages, you'll have to make your own methodology of remembering it. Okay. Anyway, it's not that important, but you should know this because it's there in almost all the books. Okay. Anyway, so this man Ranga, he became the general secretary of All India Kisan Sabha. So he was the general secretary of Kisan Sabha, and Swami Shahjanand, about whom I just talked few minutes back, he became the president of this All India Kisan Sabha over here, right? Now, there were a lot of other important people also in All India Kisan movement, and let's try to remember a few names now. So, important people, we are just trying to remember important people related to All India Kisan Sabha. Of course, Swami Shahjan is there, NG Ranga is there. You can always mention it. There can be a question in your prelim exam. For example, it can be that who among the following were associated with All India Kisan Sabha. So you don't have to exactly remember these names for in mains exam. Even mentioning Shahjanand and Ranga would do. But for the purpose of prelims, just having a vague idea would always help you clear the prelim exam. So I have written the names of these 5 people. One is Ram Manohar Lohia. That's a very easy name. You can I always somehow link it to these kind of movements only. Ram Manohar Lohia is very easy to remember. Indulal Yagnik is there. Jayaprakash Narayan is there. And Kamal Sarkar is one of those people, and then you have Ahmadeen. Okay, now these 5 people were important. You don't have to remember the names exactly. You don't need them to recall and write in your mains exam. This is mainly important for your prelim exam. Okay, now let's move ahead. Now, whenever any movement starts or any party starts, what will they do? They will probably bring out the agenda of theirs, or in other words, we can also say that they will bring out their manifesto. Now, what was their manifesto? We are going to talk about that. Kisan Manifesto. It was called as Kisan Manifesto. Okay. Now, just let me clear the page and then we can do this. Now, not many people will tell you that even this small incidence is very important for exam. And why is this important? Because this is Kisan Manifesto. Okay, we know this. And Kisan is a Hindi word for farmer, and or you can call it also as a farmer manifesto. Okay, now because it's about farmer, that means it's about the agrarian reforms. Now this manifesto played an important role in determining the agrarian program which was adopted by Congress in 1936 at its Fazpur session. The very important fact, and because it was so prominently adopted at that time, it becomes automatically important for our exam. And this, of course, will impact all the agriculture related things in the times to come. Now, any manifesto would have a great list of things associated with it. So we cannot go into all the details, but still, what I would like to do is give you a very small detail about that what these demands were. Okay, so I'll just talk about 2 demands over here. The first demand is that it asked for a 50% reduction in rent and revenue. Okay, so you can just even if you write 50% reduction in rent, that will be fine in exam. Number 2 is that it wanted recognition for peasant unions. So that's why this particular manifesto is very important for our exam. Okay, so that is all about All India Kisan movement. The next topic that I'm going to talk about here is the Congress Council entry. Now we already discussed this in detail in the earlier lectures about the Congress fighting elections. Actually, the last 2 lectures were about this only. Now we've done this, right? Now when Congress came into being, what happened? The civil liberties increased. Okay, civil liberties increased. That was number thing. Sense of ownership was there, and because our own people were in power. Actually, there was sense of ownership. Okay, and because of this, year 1937 to 39, this has been called the high watermark of the peasant movement, right? and there were various legislation for agrarian that came at the time of Congress, and which also added to the Kisan movements, the peasant movement at that time. So what were those? Congress said, okay, fine, we'll listen to you, you are our people only, so we will bring out various laws or legislations. And what these legislations were all about: number one, it was about the debt relief, that we will give you all the relief from the debt. Okay, number one. And number two, it was about the restoration of the lands, because Britishers would take away land of the from the people who were not able to pay their revenue. So restoration of land is number two. Number three was a security of tenure. Security of tenure, because what was happening, that zamindar would come and oust the farmer at any time. Now suppose you are a farmer, what happens, that you have grown the crop over here, okay, so you grew the crop, and what happened, all of a sudden the zamindar, the Britishers come and they evict you, you don't even get the crop over here. So they ensured security of tenure, that let's say before 5 years you cannot be, the land cannot be taken away from you. That is how it went, right? Now in all this, there was something even of greater importance. And what was that? That is something which I would like to talk to you about. And this was about what is known as Bakshat lands. Okay, I'll write here BAKASHT. Bakshat lands. So what were these Bakshat land? Congress actually initiated a law. Okay, this is because it's related to laws only, that's why I'm talking about this, that for the reduction of rent and restoration of Bakshat lands. Now Bakshat lands are those which you see actually okay, I'll explain you the Bakshat lands here. There were tenants on land, right? Now these tenants, they could not pay the tenancy, the rent, the money to the zamindar. Now, because they could not pay, and they were in occupation of the land, of course, these tenants. Now they had lost these lands to the zamindar. They could no longer hold the occupancy of it, in spite of the law, and that was because of the British policy. Now this law was changed by the Britishers over here. Simply put, these were those which the occupancy tenants had lost to. Okay, we always call them occupancy tenants, that's very important here. They had occupancy tenants had lost to zamindars, mostly during the depression year. And this issue, in spite of all the efforts, became the point of rivalry in Congress on one side, and on the other side there was All India Kisan Sabha. Why? Now you will say that they had done the good stuff, इन्होंने अच्छा किया, they had done the good stuff, so why there is rivalry? Because All India Kisan Sabha thought that the work done by Congress regarding Bakshat lands was not enough. Okay, and agreement of restoration of land with zamindar, this did not satisfy Kisan Sabha. Their contention was that the tenant were to be given land back on payment of half of the auction price of land. What was the law about Bakshat lands? I'm writing it here. The law about the Bakshat land was that, number one, that if you pay 50% of the rent, then the land can be given back to you. But All India Kisan Sabha said, no, why we will not even pay 50%, because we just cannot do that. But that was the policy, okay. And 50% of what? You have half the auction price of the land, not the rent, sorry. Okay, they said half the auction price. The lands will be sold, okay, whatever the land will not be sold, but if it is put to sale, whatever the price be, let's suppose the land was put to sale and it was costing rupees 100, so the farmer would need to pay 50 rupees, the 50% of it. It was 150 rupees, then it will need to pay 75 rupees to the government, to the zamindar, whatever that was. But on the 50% would be paid of the auction money, and then the land can be given back to the tenant. That was the policy. But All India Kisan Sabha said that this is wrong, right? Number one was this problem of Congress versus AIKS over here. This thing over. I'm discussing this over here. Okay, this is the place I'm discussing it. Okay. So number two is that the certain categories of land, they were exempted that from this law, that these lands will not be returned back come what may. Okay. And because after all this, what happened now, because of all these issues, like not everyone was happy. So because of all this, what had happened, I'll just change the color, it's not visible. What had happened was this, that not everyone was happy, so there was a lot of violence. Okay, lot of violence, lot of bloodshed was there, and this ultimately resulted in arrest of 600 activists by our own government. Now you please understand that how we ended up fighting in ourselves only at that time itself. This movement, now all this movement, okay, all this movement, it revived in 1945, and we'll talk about that movement also. And all this movement continued till zamindari was abolished in India. Okay, that's how it all went on. Now there's one small issue, and that is the time has already exceeded 30 minutes, so I'll need to stop this lecture here. We'll cover the remaining part in the next lecture. And just to inform you that what all we are done with, and we are done with this part, All India Kisan Movement and the Congress role. Three things remain over here: mobilization of peasant, decline, Tebaga, and finally the impact. The four things remain here. We'll be talking about all this in the next lecture, right? So in the end, I just have to say two things. If you like the lecture, please do share it with others, and yes, also do click on the like button if you like it, because that way I get to know how much you are liking the lecture, and I of course make better lectures that way. And lastly, if you want all these lectures and the future lectures in your email box, then you will need to subscribe to us, and that you can do by clicking on this button over here. So that's all, and thank you so much for watching this lecture.